So again, today's presentation is called Microsoft Dynamics 365 ERP Solution Face-Off, Business Central versus Finance and Supply Chain Management. For those that don't know about Envision Blockchain, just want to put this screen over here. So this is something that we're calling the Envision Experience. So if you look at it from really left to right, it's really cutting edge technology. And we're going to get through some of this with the ERP stuff. But essentially, system integration is a really important piece to any growing business. Those that are in charge of their industries, they need to be able to implement new technology in order to maintain that lead. And then also those that are up and coming also need to be able to have more efficient processes and streamline all of the work that they do. You can think of us really simply as a system integrator, where we focus on either a Microsoft Dynamics 365 solution or with custom application development. Some of the solutions that we leverage in order to make this happen is there in the middle with regards to modern cloud and on-prem solutions. So we leverage, for those that know about Envision Blockchain and all the work that we've been doing in the private and public blockchain space, we like to incorporate those elements. There's also line of business applications, migration to the cloud and cross platforms, IoT device integration, so on and so forth. And then also we like to lead through education through our blockchain immersion workshops, discovery days, so on and so forth. So again, just a little bit about us. So here's the agenda. It's going to be pretty quick. So we have a lot of content that we're going to try to pack into the next 30 minutes. We're going to start with an intro to Dynamics 365 ERP. We're going to talk about the differences between those ERPs, and then we're going to provide a quick demo at the end to give everyone a little bit of a taste of what those ERPs look like and what you could expect if you were to purchase either one of them. So we're going to start with a really simple high-level overview. We've talked about this in the past in some of the other presentations that we've done over the course of the years, but we like to always defer to this as the first slide, because Michael Porter's value chain is really instrumental when we're talking about business processes and how a business operates in general. So we have primary activities as well as supporting activities. And if we were to take a look at the primary activities first, this is typically what every organization from the Fortune 500 all the way down to the SMBs, if you're doing business, you're most likely doing a set of these inbound logistics. You have production going on, you have outbound logistics, you have some element of marketing and sales, you have some element of customer service. Now, all these primary activities have to be supported somehow. And that's what that top green section is all about. So within all these primary activities, you're going to see that there is this firm infrastructure. How do you handle your finances? How do you handle the administrative and the operation of all this? How do you recruit? How do you retain? How do you grow the human resource that you have, which is really the most expensive component to any sort of organization? Then you also have this technology development, right? So you have your IT, your innovations, your improvements, your developments, and then as well as the procurement aspect. So no matter what industry vertical that you're at, these horizontals are really timeless. So taking this and diving in just a little bit deeper, we have now the high-level overview of the operations of a business, right? So if you break down, one way to look at the value chain was the way that we just saw it with Michael Porter. The other way to look at the value chain is, for example, to break down the different operations of a business in different modules, if you will. And this is going to make sense in a couple slides, but essentially, if you were in charge of the operations of your organization, you're most likely going to have your ear towards finances. You're going to have your ear towards the supply chain processes. You're going to have your ear towards procurement, how you're sourcing, who are your vendors, who are your customers. And that leads into, you have an ear over the sales aspects. You have an ear to marketing. You have now the need to be able to manage the warehouses once you sell something, when you store something, where it is, where the inventory levels are. And then we were talking about the recruitment of the individuals, and you have the HR component. And let's not forget what's near and dear to Envision's heart is obviously the project management of this entire orchestration of how this all goes. Because you can actually think about project management within every single one of these components. There could be a project within finance to set up a new system. There could be a project for warehouse to be able to move to a different warehouse. Sales and marketing have different campaigns that they need to manage the projects for. So anyway, these are at the high level, the operations of a business. And whatever business that you're at, a growing business is going to need the right tools. When you're just starting a business, when you're just starting your company, as we've seen many of our customers that are just starting out on just plain old napkins, right? We're joking around, but it's not a joke. You have your whiteboard, you have your napkins, you have your couple employees, and this is how you manage the entire operations. That's all that you really need to get started. When you start growing processes, then you start utilizing everyone's go-to is Microsoft Excel. Us as a Microsoft shop, we like to think about Microsoft Excel, where you could be using Google Sheets, or you could be using some kind of really lightweight something to track something. It could be a database, Google Drive, it could be OneDrive, simple stuff. And that's important, right? Because you don't want to get focused too heavy on tools. But this is really the basis of the beginning of organizing and solidifying and stabilizing your processes. What really is the next step is as you're growing, now you want to be able to intro your organizations to a serious culture change. It's like moving from napkins and spreadsheets, moving into what we like to call the introduction to the world of ERPs, where you now have this ability to take, for example, now we understand, for example, Excel Online or Google Sheets, you have the ability to collaborate, but you're still sitting in different silos. The need to take these different silos and centralize all of your data, making it almost like a digital repository, allows for just a insane amount of efficiencies. Really, the jump from spreadsheets to intro to ERPs at that phase, you're taking your business into a whole nother league of efficiency, right? So this is where the intro to ERP kind of section that we see with our customers go in. And then there's the need to be able to now, once you've outgrown that intro to ERP phase, now you're going into this the enterprise level ERP world, where functionalities is completely customizable. You have this open canvas, which we're going to get into, and you have basically all the bells and whistles at your fingertips to operate just like a Fortune 500 company will. Now, if you give this enterprise level ERP tool set to a company that should only be working on napkins, they're going to stumble off of that. It's like when you're working out, you want to work your way up to the weights, right? You're going to start to bench press something that's too heavy for you. You're going to pull a muscle and you're not going to be in the gym anymore. So it's like that analogy. Growing businesses need the right tools. Welcome now to the introduction to Microsoft Dynamics 365 ERP. Just a little bit of backstory on the Microsoft Dynamics world. There's essentially a couple different quadrants within the Microsoft ecosystem. You have the modern workspace, which encompasses like Office 365, Microsoft Excel, those kind of simple tool sets. Then you have data and AI, which is your Power BIs, your reportings, your AI, you have Azure sitting. Then you also have this other component called business apps and business applications. And that's where Microsoft Dynamics sits in. What's interesting about that is that back in the day, Microsoft Dynamics was really known as a CRM. If you were thinking about Microsoft Dynamics, you were thinking about a customer relation management tool, a CRM. It was a competitor to Salesforce, right? So it was primarily for sales and marketing. The world of business apps evolved into now sales and then customer management and then fleet management. And then they added voices of the customer, and then they expanded into finance, and then they expanded out into supply chain. And then there was all these other, say, Dynamics AX, which is an on-premise version of finance and operations, which you over here on the left-hand side. And then there was a Dynamics Nav, which is what you see here, which is now the cloud version called Business Central. Finance and operations, if we were to make the analogy to what the screen that we just saw, finance and operations, which is now rebranded to finance and supply chain management, which now it's two different SKUs. There's the finance SKU, which you can purchase, and the supply chain management SKU, which you can purchase. It is your full-blown, all the whistles that you can think about the ERP. We're going to get into what the differences are in a second. And now Business Central, which is comparable to Business Dynamics Nav, that's your, we want to say intro to ERP. It's not entry level because the capabilities of Business Central are vast and you can do a lot with it. And on top of that, you can customize it as well, which we're going to describe. But it's a lot simpler to get started. It's quicker to get started. And this is your intro to ERP. This is a little bit of the backstory on kind of the evolution of the Microsoft ERP into where they are today. So just really quickly diving in a little bit deeper, Business Central, it essentially provides all the capabilities for operations and management capabilities, just to name a couple. And again, I'm going to show you the demo in a second, but just to name a couple, we have finance management, HR management, AI supported forecasting. It has your CRM in there. It has project management modules in there. It has your supply chain management. It's got e-commerce services, warehouse management, and inventory. You can see it's got a nice user interface, different dashboards, different widgets, the ability to embed Power BI reports, so on and so forth. And this is really taking your company to the next level if you were to just be working on napkins or spreadsheets. Finance and supply chain management, and I'm probably going to go between both the finance and operations and the SCM just out of bad habit. But it's too much to write in this particular slide, but finance enables the medium-sized organizations and enterprises really to monitor everything that you need on a global scale. We're going to talk about all the different modules. It's a lot to just start to ramble off, but we're going to share it in a second. Supply chain management, it just takes it to the manufacturers, distributors, retailers with all the real-time visibility and intelligence that's needed for proactive operations. It's got a lot that's baked into there. Everything from fulfillment and planning, procurement, production, inventory, warehousing, transportation processes. It's very in-depth, it's very granular, and we're really excited here to talk about it. So what's the difference, right? How can you start to spot the difference between the two? We could see if you do a Google search online, you're not going to find a lot of information. So we're taking it upon ourselves to really put this together. Business Central is fairly new. There's a lot of information around it. It's only been out for just a couple of years right now. Dynamics Nav has been out for a while, but finance and supply chain management is a brand new offering because it was just separated from finance and operations. So let's get into kind of a table view of some of the differences. So for example, finance and operations, one way to look at it is company size, right? So if you're a mid to enterprise organization, you're probably going to look at that. If you're small to mid, you're going to look at Business Central. Can it handle multi-companies? Both finance and SCM and Business Central can. How many languages does it support? Multi-language support is actually greater right now for Business Central, where it handles over 80, where in finance and supply chain management handles 30. Ideal company size. So if you are a company size of anywhere from 50 to 2,000, you're going to be looking at finance and supply chain management. And Business Central is really for the smaller type of user base from 1 to 500. There is a minimum type of users that you need for finance and supply chain management. So you need to pay for a minimum of 20 users. And for Business Central, there literally is no minimum. If anyone has done any sort of ERP implementation, you know that there's a cost for implementation. You just don't buy it off the shelf and start to use it. It's got to be configured. There's data that's got to be migrated into it. You're looking at an average cost of implementation anywhere from 100K to over $1 million for finance and SCM. And for Business Central, you're looking anywhere from as low as 10K all the way up to 700K. Time frame of implementation, again, this is dependent on what's needed to implement, anywhere from 6 to over a year with regards to finance and SCM. And in Business Central, you're looking at something that could be quickly done within half a year. Both of them are cloud and on-prem. And then there's a couple of ideal industries. Again, everyone that's in this presentation is going to get a copy of this. I'm just going to skip on to the next slides just in the interest of time. You're more than happy to go back and read some of the depth of the manufacturing functionalities, capabilities, and integrations with other D365 components, and some of the scalability factors to put into consideration. When you're starting up, this is important, and this kind of goes into the implementation timeframe that we were just talking about. When you're talking about finance and supply chain management, there is like a blank canvas. It's like you have a blank canvas of all the things that you could do, and that's a way that you get started. You need something called lifecycle services in order to get started. It's a separate deployment solution that is needed to facilitate the deployment of this, since everything is Microsoft Azure based. You're most likely to customize this, and there's constant updates that happen. You're talking somewhere around 8 updates per year that include new functionality that there will be a need to manage this. So you are looking to have a team that's going to host this internally. Business Central, on the other hand, there is a wizard to get started, which can be used as a guide for Microsoft consultants or trained professionals to be able to use this as a starting place. Because of that, you're less likely to add different customizations into the implementation, but customizations still can be done. And that's our strong suit over here at Envision with the custom application that we develop. There are monthly hot fixes, but they're not new upgrades. They're just bug fixes or whatever. And there are 2 major upgrades per year. With regards to functionality, the question is like, what do you really need? You don't want to say that you're going to pick finance and SCM or Business Central just based on company size. You need to look at what you actually need. So finance and SCM has extensive functionality. You pay for the license and you get everything, even though that you don't use it. Business Central, the core functionality is accounting and supply chain. There's some modules that we're going to show you that's actually not included in the finance and SCM, and that's just some of the differences in the different tiers. So there's the functionality with dimensions consideration that needs to be done. So within finance and SCM, you have this extensive functionality and you get access to all of it again, which also allows you to have this unlimited number of dimensions and entity-backed dimensions, which really allows you to slice and dice different reporting in many different ways. When you're talking about Business Central, you have core functionality, which is accounting and supply chain. You have these 2 global dimensions and you have 6 additional shortcut dimensions, which makes reporting a little bit limited on the different dimensions. However, you still have the ability to use Power BI, which allows you to slice and dice in many different ways. Again, just because you don't have all the unlimited dimensions doesn't mean you can't report on everything. But here's an example of where dimensions would be helpful. So for example, on the left, you have 6 legal entities that are reporting against different departments, sites, line of businesses. You're going to want those different types of dimensions. Again, this is why finance and SCM is more for global organizations, because not every organization that we deal with has 6 different entities that are reporting against all these different dimensions. Just another consideration to put into there. Reporting on the topic of reports, we're going to talk about this. There's, no matter where you look at, you're talking like you're not going to have a shortage of reporting. So finance and SCM, again, it's a different beast. You have 675 out of the box reports. So for example, here's all the different modules that are listed out. You have from accounts payable, you have 30, accounts receivable, 38, asset management, 34. I'm not going to read every single one of them, but you can screenshot this if you want. It's all there. Business Central has 188 reports. Again, so human resources, 13 reports, purchasing, 25, manufacturing, 3. I'm going to try to get to the demo here just so we can see some of these reports. But again, the functionality out of the box reports, we're not even talking about BI reporting or the custom reporting. This is just out of the box kind of Microsoft Excel looking like type of reports. It really looks like SQL Server reporting services, the SSRS reports for anyone that's familiar with that. User accessibility. So finance and supply chain management, I'm going to show you that it really focuses on workspace centered to assist a user's repetitive tasks. So there's these different widgets that you can put in, and I'm going to show you what that look like. One of the features that everyone likes about finance and SCM is the workspaces, which are really neat to look at. I'm definitely going to show you that. Then you have Business Central, which is really role center focused. And they're doing this because in a large organization, you have one role and you have one specific role, and that's it. So you have the task that you have to do. That's the only thing that you care about. You're right. You're just in your lane. When you're in a smaller organization or maybe mid-size, you probably have many different tasks because you're wearing many different hats. And because of that, you're going to need more widgets, if you will, that are accessible to you right there from your home screen. So that's what Business Central is really focused on, the different roles that you're doing throughout your day. It also has a better integration with Outlook. So there's plugins that allow you to have points of entry to Business Central without actually having to go into Business Central. A lot of companies like the ability to use Outlook and right from your emails, be able to trigger anything else that you need to do within your ERP. Like, what are the major differences from a core functionality? Advanced warehousing is probably one of the biggest differences, if you will. So for example, in finance and SCM, you have the ability to do license plating, warehouse application, and barcode scanning and quality control. While you could still do that in Business Central, it's not necessarily out of the box. So some functionality does need to be customized. What that is, it's a little hard to say at the beginning because every business has different processes, but barcode scanning, just to show you, like barcode scanning, for example, is a feature that's enabled in Business Central, but there has to be some customization in order to make that happen. Some of the other type of missing modules, for example, finance and SCM, it has retail, it has transportation management, it has very deep project management modules where Business Central doesn't. So again, if you have Business Central and those are important, you can always customize on top of that. It has a very extensible type of an interface with APIs to do basically whatever that you want. But again, out of the box, that's why the licenses are so much more expensive for finance and supply chain management, because there's a lot more that goes into there. Just wrapping up the slides over here, one of the things that is currently there for finance and SCM that's not there for Business Central is integration to Dataverse, which is your common data service, your CDS. In finance and SCM, it allows you to dual write. It's native to the application. So it supports both online and offline modes. You can create anything custom that you need by using CDS. In Business Central, it's scheduled to launch, but it's not there yet, the integration to CDS. There are some tables for you to leverage currently, like contact and customer, shipping method, currency, vendor, and payment terms. For those that are sitting in the webinar right now that are thinking, what in the world is CDS? Got you covered. So CDS, think of it as a universe of data for you to pull from without actually being in the ERP at the same time. So this allows you to use something like Power Apps. For those that are not familiar with Power Apps, it's a low-code user interface or application builder. So you can build, for example, a customer portal that your users could join that looks prettier than if you were to give them access to the ERP. So you can customize it, you can configure it, you can develop some HTML on it, you can make it look like a real web app and use your dual write capabilities to write back to the Dynamics 365 system. So for example, in a supply chain portal like this, you can make a portal that's web-based that'll feed information to and from your ERP by using Common Data Service. So again, that's out of the box integrated with finance and SCM. However, that's currently scheduled to be released in Business Central. Again, Business Central is much newer than finance and operations or finance and SCM. So that's why some of these updates are still being rolled out to there. So I'm going to go ahead and continue sharing my screen. I have here two different apps to go ahead and take a look at. Let's take a look at Business Central first. I'm going to go over by a couple minutes. I'm going to try to wrap this up in about 5 minutes or so. So thanks for hanging out here. Essentially, you could just see off the bat where in Business Central you have some of the way to navigate is that you have your navigation tab up top. You have some widgets that you can configure, like the scrolling tickers, if you will, that shows information that's relevant to whatever you wanted to set up. You have some dashboards, some more widgets. You have your specific tasks that are coming up. One thing that you get from an ERP that you don't have from spreadsheets or napkins or whiteboards is the ability for workflows, which are automated tasks or tasks that need approvals. So again, if you're in charge of any sort of approvals or any workflows, you can set them up so that they easily surface to where you are. You get some dynamic reporting that you can see right here. Power BI can be embedded right there. So again, just to show you at the high level, we can open up all the modules and we can go ahead and explore all. And here you can see all the modules that Business Central has to offer. So let's go ahead and expand all. See if it'll allow us to expand. Yeah, so let's see, let's collapse. Let's expand. Okay, here you could see Company Hub, but then you have in manufacturing, right? And there's just tons of modules that come from there. So we have for capacity, we have planning, operations, costing, sales and marketing with sales, order processing, marketing, inventory pricing. And I'm just going to go through this really quickly. You have within project management, you have your jobs, you have your reports. Finance is also very popular. So you have your general ledger and there's just more here, right? So you have your journals, entries, reports, cash management, cost accounting, receivables, payables, fixed assets. You have your purchasing modules, right? You get the drift here. Warehouse, planning and operations, and I could just go on opening up all these modules and showing you one by one. But the point here is just to kind of flash this on the screen and get you a feeling as to all the different modules that you could be using as your organization is growing. To give you a view of finance and operations, I'm going to have to refresh the screen. So for example, I'm going to actually change legal entities here. I like to show demos on this legal entity called USMF. Many people might have seen this in some of the other demos that we've done before. For example, when we put in the custom module for connection to the blockchain ledger there with Radish 34, but nevertheless here, as you could see, all the different modules. So you could see the widgets that you have when you log in. Again, I'm the admin role, so I see everything. But here, for example, if we were to look at accounts payable, we can go ahead and expand all, and you see everything: vendors, purchase orders, invoicing, payments, brokers and royalties, inquiries of reports, periodic tasks, things like that. So we have accounts receivable now. Right. And again, just to take you through the workspaces that we were talking about. So for example, if we were to go ahead and click on one of the workspaces, customer invoicing, see, it kind of comes up as a nice widget for you to go ahead and take a look through. I will go directly to, for example, the retail and commerce. because I was telling you in the webinar that there's certain modules that are not in Business Central that are here, and this is one of them, is the retail and commerce one. Just to show you, if you were a global company that had stores across the country, this may be a module that's important to you. Now, we're not talking about having products across different stores. We're talking about owning the different stores, making sure that you keep track of all the balances that are in every POS station and so on and so forth. And you could see all the different registers across all the different stores that are in all the different workers that you have, all the different devices. It's like your total holistic view across every single store that you have across the entire world. So here we have some registers that are in Paris, some that are in Houston, some that are in San Francisco. So again, this one module, the retail and commerce, just gives you a kind of a good example of, it's if you're in a global operation with 40 stores and 155 registers with 585 workers in all of these retail locations, this is a clear-cut sign that finance and operations or finance and supply chain management is for you where Business Central is not, right? Where you're managing the loyalty cards, gift cards, and so on and so forth. Just a quick one, just to show you the different screens. So that's it. We really do appreciate the time that you spend with us here. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at info@envisionblockchain.com. Go to our website at www.envisionblockchain.com, or old school, you can pick up the phone and just call us. We're here to help you out. Schedule a demo. We're more than happy to go one by one into all these different modules, talk to you about your business processes and see which of the solutions is right for you and have that conversation. All right, everyone, have a good one, and we'll see you again next month, if not sooner. Take care.